Thank you for the introduction. And as you heard, I started as a mathematician, and it took me a long way to come to this point to talk about innovation. But also, the previous speaker also started as a mathematician. That is a proof that you can be a mathematician and can go anywhere in the world. Okay. I would like to convey the innovation policy of the European Union and Germany. And this is rather a broad topic. And so what I can present, I can give some glimpse of the policy. And I'm looking at my friend Uma Bindi from Nigeria, and he keeps asking what is transferable to the African or other situation. I'm afraid I don't know it. I can only offer a bad joke. The bad joke is, why not ask the African Union to do something similar? Yes, so that seems to be a bad joke. So anyway, the European Union is doing something. And I will talk about the framework for innovation. It's policy. It's not really the actual process of innovating things. And also I will completely neglect the idea of creativity, something like that. So I'm staying on a kind of, say, top superficial level and describe the framework. And I have chosen the European level, and then in contrast, I have chosen the German situation, because in Europe we are facing a basic problem. We have the European level, and we have the national level. And there is competition and interaction, there are conflicts, and there are cooperation and so on. And also I would like to make a comment concerning the internal structure of the European Union. You are maybe not familiar with the situation in Europe. The European Union consists of 27 member states. And over lunch we discussed how many states are in Europe, maybe 35. So the big majority belong to the European Union. And this is really a huge association. Some people try to call it a big mess, because really to cope with the diversity in Europe is a big, huge, and sometimes inconceivable political task. But there are people like me that who think that it's really worthwhile doing this job and to build up a European, say, a unified European space. But anyway, it's a tricky business to deal with innovation on a European level. And as I said before, there's always competition and interaction, conflicts between the European level and the national level. Okay. So I want to start with this chart that is entitled Alarm in Europe. That alarm does not refer to the financial and economic crisis Europe is suffering right now, but it's concerned the capacity for innovation in Europe. And what is spectral ring? I do not understand why I have the spectral ring there. Okay, ignore this little spectral ring that has something to do with the previous slide. So this is an innovation ranking. Okay, that is an innovation ranking that was issued by the European Union. So these are the data, so collected by the European Commission, and so they depend on certain set of indicators, and I have chosen this ranking because just to please the Korean hosts, South Korea is at the top. But frankly, there are other rankings where South Korea is a little bit lower, but this is the better one. And anyway, what it shows is wherever South Korea is, Europe is not at the top. And this is a kind of attack on our self-esteem where Europe's supposed to be. And this is one instance. That is one instance that shows something is happening in Europe and not to the best. And if you look at the structure of the economy, so one can really summarize, and I do it in this way, it has a high-tech deficiency. And by high-tech, I mean really the highest tech. And if you compare Is the laser pointer here?
Yes.
This one? Okay. If you compare both circuits, you see on the right-hand side in the US situation, there's a big part that is devoted to pharmaceuticals, biotech, and ICT. So this I call, let me say, the real high-tech sectors of the economy. Whereas in Europe, this is much smaller. In a way, we rely and we depend on the more traditional, say, sectors of economy, automobile, and so this is, in one way, maybe you can refer to it as a medium high-tech. That's not the top high-tech situation. So that is a big difference. That is a big difference between the European situation and the US situation, and maybe it applies to Korea and other innovation leaders as well. So these are some features of the European situation. And the title here, Europe Risks Losing Ground, is not mine. So that was really chosen as a title of a speech by President Barroso. He is one top leader in Europe. And here you see why he's stating that Europe risks losing ground. Because the innovation leaders, US, Japan, and South Korea, they are much better. They are still better than the European Union. And also that the performance lead in this ranking of South Korea has increased, but say nicely to see that the gap with US and Japan got smaller. And so in a way, in the top group, we are still behind South Korea, but some other competitor, they are getting closer. But from below, there's also some attack, because the BRIC countries, they are catching up, and China does it in high speed, and they have low labor costs. But the labor costs in Europe or in Germany, they are real high. So they have growing population, whereas the demographic decline in Europe and in Germany is a severe issue. So that also means we get a sharper competition from below. And also the share of GDP on R&D, there's a target in Europe of 3%, but we are at 2%. And US is better, in Japan and South and Korea they are 3.4, even more. So that means the average share of GDP on R&D is in a way is a kind of stagnation in Europe. So it's rather difficult. So, and then he summarized what is wrong in Europe and what can we do about it. That is one basic question the European Commission and the European authorities are keeping asking. So there is one answer. Just to repeat, I'm talking about frameworks, yes? I do not talk about the actual process of innovation. So there is a Europe 2020 strategy for growth, and there are three main objectives. One is called the SMART Europe, sustainable and inclusive. And I will concentrate on the Innovation Europe a bit later on, because this has to do with the institution of higher education, with research institutes and so on. So anyway, so these are objectives. And there's a focus on investment in education, research and innovation. This is really a clearly set objective of the European Union. And especially the Innovation Union, the digital agenda, industry policy and resource efficiency. What is the aim? The aim is really to create optimal conditions for researchers and entrepreneurs to innovate. So this is clearly one main objective, one main goal that is set by the European Union. I will, at the end, I will concentrate, or later on I will concentrate on the Innovation Union, but maybe I would like to comment briefly on sustainable and inclusive aspects. At the end, the inclusive aspect, I guess it was alluded to by you, there's a social dimension of innovation. And in Europe, we are facing the demographic issues. We have a declining society population. And so the human resource management is really an important issue, and at the European level, also at the national level, so we have to take care of that. Reduction of poverty and social exclusion, that's really a point that belongs to innovation. Okay, but under the heading of this session, I want to concentrate on Innovation Union. There are three objectives: the social innovation, I will skip that, the economic issues, but then the R&D issues. First of all, there's a huge funding scheme. It has still to be approved by the European Parliament, but I guess there won't be any big difference to what I'm writing here. So for the next 7 years, so there is the proposal of spending 70 billion euros, these are say about 90 billion US dollar, to promote research and innovation. And what is really in the focus of this expenditure, the whole chain of innovation, from basic research to market, is addressed. That means not only researchers can submit their proposal, but also SMEs. Everybody can do it. And is it much money or is it little money? So that's for 7 years. That means 10 billion per year for 27 member states. So do you call it peanuts for an individual? If I look at expenditure in the United States, it's not much. But this is additional to the national programs, and I will come to that point later on. The next issue is European research area. That is really interesting. Europe is willing to build up a unified European research area. And this means that the member states, the individual member states, stick to a general principle adopted by all. That means research funding should follow the criteria of excellence, for example. And also there are grants, cross-border research institutes, and also everything is in addition to national research funding. And what is really interesting is Science Europe. Science Europe, that is a network, kind of sub-network, comprising of all the national research funding agencies. And they have a budget, they are representing a budget, an annual budget of 13 billion euro. So this is, you can say this is maybe something that sits on paper, but there's the willingness really, the willingness and commitment, and also there are actions in order to really build up a unified European research space. And that is really, it's an ongoing and successful activity. The last issue on this slide is the European Institute for Innovation and Technology. This was formed in order to foster the transition from basic research to the market. And they do activities in this respect. And also at the bottom line you see there are education programs on entrepreneurship and innovation skills. There's not that much money involved there, but still this European Institute for Innovation and Technology is already working. So these are the funding schemes where research institutes and university and higher education institutes are involved. So I just skip over it, but I want to tell you that also the economic issues are addressed, and also the social aspects are addressed in the innovation union. But what we are facing in Europe, there's a great diversity. And you see the blue parts, these are the innovation leaders. And what are the innovation leaders in Europe? You see Sweden at the top, then Germany, Denmark and Finland. So I'm looking at the colleague from Finland. So the differences are not big. So you can say they have similar performance. And you see, these are the blue parts. And the green one are the innovation follower. And then what comes next is below the average. And then you see it's a kind of, say, scattered picture. So innovation is located somewhere in Europe. And there are some poor regions. And there is a big problem that were wrote down at the bottom. Innovation is located in regions. Even Germany is also not whole of Germany. So the eastern part is green, so is innovation follower. But for example, in France, you see some part around Paris, and you see some part that is Elsass-Lothringen. They are strong. And in Portugal, there's a tiny piece. In Great Britain, there is also in the southeast something like that. So innovation is located in regions, and this really asks for a regional innovation policy. So that is maybe the core to foster, to enhance innovation, that we really take into account the strengths of regions, and you have to build up a regional innovation policy. So, and you see, of course, what does it mean for the European policy? So Germany could be, say, egocentric and said, why bother with Portugal, something like that. So we are strong enough, so we live our own life, and so we enjoy that we are strong and so on. But so if you want to build up a unified Europe, you have to take into account the diversity in the innovation divide. So that is why I was telling you what's going on the European level. But as I said earlier, there's still, and this is really a vital aspects of the European situation, there's also the competition and the conflict and interaction with the national situation. And Germany, just to summarize some things, is a strong economy. You see the topic there, the 5th largest in the world, the 3rd largest exporter worldwide, the largest economy in Europe, and among the top innovators in Europe. Again, the ranking list, Sweden, Germany, Denmark, and Finland. And the R&D spending has increased over the years. We are close to the target of 3%. And what is, say an important issue or important feature of the German situation, we have really many strong and innovative SMEs. And they are in their niche where they work, they are world's leader. But this really applies to small, parts of our economy. So we have lost, and you see that in the but section, we have lost world leadership, for example, in pharmaceuticals and optics, and also in ICT and so on. So Germany has lost some strong position in the world. And I guess one has to face and to accept the situation that we are lagging behind world's high-tech leaders. And also, the challenge at the top, the high-tech, the real high-tech innovation, and innovation concerning products, but also business models and services, they are very often made outside Germany. And there's also a growing competition in the medium high-tech sector, because the big countries, for example, they are catching up, and they have the additional advantage of low labor costs, for example. And what in Germany, you look at me, I also am a member of the aging population, and there are fewer young people. I have 3 daughters. I made my job in a way, so that the birth rate is 1 point something so at the moment. So I guess we have fewer young people in the aging population, and this means a lot for innovation. And again, there's a special German answer. Germany has issued a high-tech strategy 2020, and there's a close interaction with Europe 2020. And the Germans are proud that they were supplementing what was happening on the European scene. And also Germany had some impact on the formulation of the European programs. And part of this high-tech strategy is there's additional federal funding for these 4 years, and I mean additional. You know that maybe different from the United States situation, nearly all our universities are public universities, so there's federal funding in the university system. And also there are at least 4 big scientific funding organizations, and they get per year roughly 10 billion euros per year. So there is already, say, a high-level funding, public funding, but for these high-tech strategies, there is additional funding. And they are concentrating on the themes climate and so on, what you're reading there. And some features of the high-tech strategy, and this is completely complying with the European, say, activities and efforts, that all actors and all aspects of the innovation cycle are covered. So this is an insight that it's not enough to fund research institutes. Really, you have to come down to the market. And what also is completely new is all the activities are jointly supervised by science and business communities. So there are committees, and there are 10 projects for the future and so on. But I come to the second last bullet point. So this high-tech strategy has a focus on clusters. And they are not focusing on technology or science parts. So I'm sorry to say that here. I'm invited by WTA, I should not say that, but the focus is not on technology part. Technology part are considered as an ingredient, so that can help. But cluster policy is a much bigger, more relevant topic. And also there's now an emphasis on high-tech key technology that we can say cope with the international situation. So this is a kind of survey of what's going on in Europe and in Germany. And so this is a framework. So that what I haven't talked about is how to work inside the framework. So at the end you need people to do it. So and these are another topic, and this I do not want to enter, but we have covered this, and Daejeon covered this morning. This is a framework that is really issued by Europe, by European commissions or European authorities and the national. I hope you have now got some ideas what's going on in Europe. Thank you.